Good morning, everyone. It'll be the time that this is uploaded over there in the UK. A little later than what I wanted to. Um, just a quick note. I just finished up the episode and I was going back through and editing it. And I realized I was so focused on reading and what I was saying that I didn't pay attention to background noise. So there is a couple segments throughout to where there's a TV in the background playing some random stuff, and I apologize for that. But in order for me to get rid of that, I'd have to go start all over from scratch. And I don't want to do that because it's taken me a long time. I haven't slept much, so just please understand that, and let's not bomb the comments, please. With I can hear the audio background. Yeah, I apologize for that. Um, I typically aim for having higher quality when it comes to the sound and audio. So again, I apologize for those that's annoying. In the beginning, I'd say 40, 50 minutes. I talk a lot about my thoughts and just a basis for what my concerns are still with the case. And then at about minute 49, minute 50, I start to comment on the specifics of the inquest today. So if you do hear some of the background noise in the beginning and it annoys you, just go ahead and skip to minute 49, 50. You might hear it a little bit, but it's not as bad, right? I just wanted to sneak this in there to address that, to let you know I am aware of it, and I apologize for that. But yeah, this is a lot longer than I wanted it to be. Just consider it me sitting across from you having a conversation, right? It's not scripted. It's just me hitting record and talking about my thoughts on the day. Alrighty? Enjoy. Go ahead and give me a like and a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Alrighty? Thank you. Hello, all, and welcome back to Mind Juice. Well, day one of the inquest hearing and process is down. I'm sure all of you watching and tuning in are just as anxious to discuss this and kind of take a step back and kind of conceptualize what everything means and where does it take us to now, right? My original plan was to make a video after the whole thing was said and done, but after today, there were so many things that were just like wow that I had to check in, right? So for those over in the UK, this might be coming out kind of late. Um, so hopefully you guys can still tune in before day two kicks in. Um, so I definitely want to go into the transcript, so to speak, from everything that came out today, and I'll get there here shortly because I think there's a lot of things to discuss and to go over and to unpack at that. But overall, my takeaway, understanding the coroner's inquest has nothing to do with investigation as to involvement. It is strictly to determine death, which drowning, right? And then they have to explain her positioning throughout that day to fit that narrative, right? Um, so that's what they did, right? You heard screams. Apparently, there's a place in the dirt to where she slipped. Which, where was this area, and when did they determine that? I would like for them to specify that because there was no area cordoned off, or had stakes around it not to disturb at all whatsoever. And you can go back to the actual scene itself. There's so much drone footage in the news coverage. There's nothing anywhere. So when did they determine that, right? And we definitely saw the April 4th footage that came out with the home coroner's divers. Those came into play today, showing the strength of the river and all that and whatnot. But I'm taken aback how lack of forensic evidence they've used to prove their points, right? And I will get into that. I was kind of hoping more for that. But overall, my takeaway was, I expected it would be drowning, but how glaringly obvious it is even more the police's behavior with the whole thing, right? They're locked on the working hypothesis of the river from day one. Day one. Then as soon as they switch their search away, she's found a week later, right? And they don't even find her. Jason Rothwell does, right? Who's not very reliable in my opinion. And then, as you'll see, I'll get into it. And again, real quick, I'm not scripting any of this. This is completely off the cuff, me hitting record and just going with it. So Hopefully it fits together nicely. I'm just sharing my thoughts. I'm pretty worked up over the whole thing, so just bear with me. I have a lot of good points to hit here, all right? But yeah, Jason, that tail end of it being there, they said she was found up in the reeds and covered in mud, right? Jason Rothwell even says in his statements publicly, and I'll show it up here, how he says, "Oh, just wait till Inquest. You'll see the position of her floating down the river." Like, that wasn't even alluded to today whatsoever. They showed where she was found, didn't really specify, and that was it, right? And the mud's supposed to specify that she was stuck. Well, Jason already let the cat out of the bag on that. And why does it matter? Because he's the actually one who found her. So just because the coroner or the police don't want you to believe that, it has validity because it came from the mouth of the guy who found her, whom has said in numerous sources he was asked to help by a family member. But nope, she drowned and she coincidentally was found. The police did great. This is the cause of her death. She drowned. The screams were probably her slipping in. You're right, we'll get into it. But as I was taking a step back after the inquest today, I just went to the comment of my latest video, right? And this is just me going to vent a little bit here, so bear with me. I'm not calling anybody out, but you make comments like this, I gotta bring it up, right? So shortly after the inquest, Rosie here. We're all looking forward to your apology to Paul Ansell and Emma White. When can we expect that video? Or are you going to refuse to accept the evidence presented at the inquest and insist that you're right and the professionals are wrong? Just to save face. You must be feeling pretty stupid right now as you've lost all street cred. Cred's not a word, just so you know. And Rosie, my laughing is not me being arrogant and selfless, okay? If you followed me, and this is not a direct attack, okay? You see comments in this here, the inquest notes, and you got people saying this grass-eating stuff. Where are the comments here? Bear with me. The armchair detectives are all from the South, a bunch of Kents. I hate armchair detectives. Hate to say told you so. Drowning due to entering cold water. Okay, why is this a surprise to everybody? Or are you really shocked that it's drowning? Oh, no. Maybe these haters are waiting for them to show something that if she was murdered beforehand, there would be evidence to show it. No, there wouldn't if you're doing it carefully. And like I said from day one, this whole thing's orchestrated, right? So just hear me out, okay? So these absolute ghouls. This was a poor lady, right? And they're just sitting here hooting and hollering. My question to these people and to Rosie, I just want to get this off my chest. What did you hear, see, learn today that you think gives you a rational, logical basis to say this stuff? We're all looking for, like this comment here, I don't take it personal whatsoever. And in fact, to me, I interpret, what I'm thinking is, as I'm reading it, oh God, she must be licking a cactus. Because you're just listening and you're not critically thinking about what's being said. And you're just going out and being a keyboard warrior and coming at creators. I always acknowledge when I'm wrong. Going back to the beginning, I'm a very humble man. I believe that I've earned the opportunity to apologize when it's necessary. I don't need you to tell me when I need to. And in fact, there's nothing today that will change my attitude towards Paul or Emma. Why? Because none of it was refuted. And I'll get to that. I'm not going to go coming down their throat, but just let me explain. And then look at this. At user Sam23, right? Sam Beckett, and you know what, you can prove who this is, but you're telling me this is just someone random comment? No. The 23, Sam, is this Paul? Is this Jason? I'm not, Curtis? I don't know. Looks like someone needs to change their name to Scott Free for now, referring to, I would assume, Paul Ansell. Okay, what did you hear today that got him off the hook? I mean, you guys are expecting to go and hear all this. It has nothing. They were talking about how she died, and that's what an inquest is. It has nothing to do with Paul. So, what am I saying? This could be Paul or Jason. Sam, the Sam Beckett, the 23. We all know this. Changing name. Who changed their name? Paul did, right? Scot-free. That's who he's referring to. Yellow Heart. Sherlock. Magnifying. Like, this here is absolute arrogance from somebody that's getting away with something or knows something, right? And that's my opinion. Okay? So I hope whoever this is, yeah, okay, you're clever, but you realize I can see right through that, right? And Rosie, that's no hit at you personally, but I mean, really? Did you listen to anything today and then think about what was said? What we learned was there were screams, there was a suspicious black man, and the cause of death was drowning. The only stuff we learned, really, today was the lack of police work, and it made Becky look quite a bit worse. We have no reason to believe there's another third-party involvement. I don't find two fishermen suspicious. There's an honest witness who took the stand today and said that he remembered a man dressed in black and didn't recognize him. Maybe he was from out of town. And right away when I heard that, someone filled that spot, but I'm not going to go there, right? He's not making it up. Why would he risk neck for that? Why did the police dismiss any of that? But this is the inquest. None of that matters. All the evidence presented today is to create the storyline to show that she was at that park. She did drown because that's where they found her, and they're just fitting the narrative to show and justify her drowning. It doesn't prove anything. In fact, they miss so many opportunities, right? And I want to go into this. I apologize for continuing to babble. I promise it'll be worth it. But again, so why am I being my opinion? So I want to explain something here. When I first, I know I'm new to this YouTube thing, but I don't go out and just point fingers at whoever. I know it may seem that way because I've only really covered this in the Koberger case, but I genuinely don't usually do that, and you'll see that with cases in the future. But with this case, there's one area that I will say I rest a lot of my weight and trust in my theory and my approach to this on is my trust and faith in Peter Falding's observations, his words, and his expertise. Okay, I will raise my hand. I do rely a lot on that. And that's not to single him out and make him, it's just respect. Okay? Because I've seen his body of work and I respect that. She would have been found. He said that. He's explained how. His sonar equipment, they didn't want any of that today. Right? She couldn't have crested the Wier. The police never found her. It shifted away and Jason finds her. Right? So, going back to the beginning, I studied the water measurements, the Fleetwood tidal flow, the Wier, the body decomposition, to really understand, not to point fingers at anybody, but just me understanding Nicola, what happened that day, taking science to try to make it make sense. And I determined, using Peter Falding and science and all that, she would have been found before the Wier had the events happen, and they stuck to the below the bench, which is interesting, especially the fact that the observation of Willow was giddy. Like, had there been an accident, I don't think Willow would have been giddy. I mean, that wouldn't be the word that you would describe a dog, I wouldn't think. Anyways, I digress. But the fact that she wasn't seen for 22 days, I've talked about all the police stuff, how it doesn't add up, it took so long to search Grape's pub. The whole Jason thing, I could go on and on and on. Like, none of his stories add up. His 2 fish died, Moon moved into Pisces, and then it switches to my dog Hudson died in reference to the farm fishery. Which one is it? He's the one who found her. He has claimed family told him to. That's enough of a suspicion to look into it, and that's Becky's fault. It has nothing to do with the inquest today. So Rosie and all your comments like, you don't understand what you're saying. You don't make any sense. If anything, your posts and your comments embarrass you because you don't know what you're talking about. Or you don't understand the context of what the inquest is. Okay? And I'm not saying that I know everything. It's because I've studied And that's why I've come to the conclusions that I've come to. So, Rosie, I don't just get on here and squirt out whatever I'm feeling in the moment. It's based in fact. There is still a lady in a picture with a ring on her right hand that I believe is Emma. Nothing I heard today changes that. So no apology will be going there. There is nothing that emboldens Paul's place at all. Like, whatsoever. I mean, he's in the same seat he's been the whole time. You listen to the identification presser, they were even letting his words come out and say someday their kids are gonna have to learn that their dad was a suspect. Then you get the Facebook post saying all the vulnerabilities, and it kind of came hard at Luis. Well, I'll be darned. We get to the inquest and look what two people are continuing to run with the mics. Those are your family behind the vulnerabilities on Facebook. Those are the ones mouthpiece feeding the police what to say in regards to their family. Okay? That's just the truth. And if you don't believe me, then I just ask that you please go find a different channel. This is a mature adult conversation. This isn't for kid games, keyboard warrior bullying. Like, it has nothing. I don't want that crap here. Right? Like, the biggest problem in this after today is the investigation, the police investigation. It's so much more, it looks so much more ugly if you didn't think it could already. Today, they're just simply explaining the drowning. And I want to explain, okay, going into today, in my mind, right, knowing all the facts and the location of where she was at the bench, all that jazz, right, we all know all the facts, okay? I don't think for science and Falding, if she would have been found, period. Let's not go there. She would have been found. She wasn't. That's why we all continue to have interest in this case, okay? Then somehow she travels all the way to here in those 22 days and was found here by Jason Rothwell. Okay? If you didn't know that the cause of death was going to be drowning on the day that she was recovered, then I don't know what you've been following, because it's very clear that's what was going to happen. This is the problem. The problem is, how did she crest the Wier? And you know, April 4th, Dr. James Adeley's divers were testing that because Mara Solares even stated that she saw one of the divers floating on their back up into the Wier. To what? To assess what? Right? So they don't even have to address this anomaly here. Why she wasn't found by any of their experts for 22 days whatsoever. The coroner, this isn't his responsibility. That's why these people, like, these comments, you're going to go apologize. This has nothing. What were you listening to today? It didn't prove anything. The only thing, my takeaway, is how much more errant the police work and investigation was on this case, and how much they failed Nicola and her family. That's my honest opinion. And I'm trying to check emotions out of it. It's very clear. When you have Becky saying, red van, just like many hundreds of other cars out there. I mean, come on. The Rowan Water camera wasn't working. Conveniently, neither was a caravan park. I mean, come on. I don't believe in coincidences. Right? If this was not foul play and was merely a sad, tragic drowning, we all wouldn't be here. Right? It's because nothing adds up. The media circus that happened with it. Emma being front stage. I'm not even getting into them today, right? But the problem with the inquest is they don't have to acknowledge the Wier. They don't have to acknowledge her coming down the river. Why? Because you saw it today. They didn't even address it. They just said she was found here. Move on. Jason even said himself, you'll see come inquest that she was floating down the river when I first saw her. You didn't see that happen today? Well, I think that's kind of important because he is the one who found her. Police couldn't find her. Like I said, Paul even said in his last interview, I think we should, shift focus away. She was found 6-7 days later. And you want me to apologize to Paul? What? See, I don't forget the facts of the case because we're still talking about the truth of Nicola Bulley. Now, you may package all that, forget it, watch the latest thing like the Inquest today, soak it all up while you're licking the cactus, and just come and regurgitate it all out without even thinking about it. Because that's what these responses are. Like, all armchair detectives, like, you guys, like, I love everybody. I'm a nice person, but, like, this is the problem with society. You have to use critical thought. Not you have to. If you don't, I mean, the world's based on capitalistic self-success, ego. A lot of people look at things for their own self-interest. I mean, all I'm saying is to take everything with a grain of salt. I'm not saying you have to agree with me, but there's nothing. Apologize. What are you talking about? Because you heard a doctor say drowning, everything I say is out the window and you put all your eggs in their basket. Wow. If they told you the sky was, I don't even know, lime green, you'd start telling everybody the sky was lime green. Like, that's what this competency, like, it does nothing to me. Like, to me, it's a boomerang mirror right back at you, just so you know. And this here, you think you're so clever, and then you had to be a little smart ass, pardon my language, and put the magnifying glass in there. Right? I wasn't even going to make a video today, but this stuff gets under my skin, and nothing's getting done about it. That's why I'm not going to stop. Right? Okay, so yeah, none of this has to be addressed. Okay? Then we hear in the actual things, I'm getting ahead of myself. This isn't the way I wanted to roll this out, but stand with me. We're hearing from one lady. She's at the tennis club. She stated that she heard a scream from behind the graveyard, which would be, here's the graveyard, roughly in this area, vicinity, okay? Then the other lady said she was in her backyard garden on Allotment Lane, which is over here. So we have a lady here and a lady at the tennis club hearing something over here. She says she hears it over by the river near the path, the river path. Well, this is where it happened. So their witnesses juxtaposition, it's over in this area. Now, could it be over here? It could be. There's a lot of trees and stuff. I mean, it could be, right? But then the man who was seen suspicious, all dressed in black, by that Fife guy, was standing here at the end of Allotment Lane. Why would police not think that's important? Oh, and conveniently, the CCTV was out where the man in black was standing too, right? And then there was one part where Willow was barking at something in the brush. Someone lying in wait. You know what I mean? And it's not me trying to, okay, I just can't accept it. No. If you give me an explanation as to why the lady in that picture has the hairline that Emma does and not Nicola, why Nicola's nose is shaved off of the picture, why the lady in the picture has the ring that matches Emma's, why did she flip it under immediately afterwards? And why does it ironically match? I don't believe in coincidences. Why was her body found in the tidal flow of Marsh Farm Hall a week after they switched focus? And then you have Paul make a comment about how the Marsh Farm Hall interview about how Nicholas is rock, and then you get Emma misinterpreting that as Paul was referring to her as his rock. No. And what's it I mean, you're married too. Okay, that reveals intertwined stuff. So until you can explain all that to me, and you can explain to me why the lady in that picture is not Nicola, because it's not, then I'll apologize to Emma. My target towards Emma is not based on me wanting to be right. It's my eyes, Rosie. See, I approach the world and all this stuff from a very holistic and hermeneutic lens. I don't know if you know what those mean. Maybe you can look those up. But I try to be objective, neutral, and take all perspectives. Right? And I mean that full-heartedly. In my mind, I go by facts. Someone explain to me this, you can't. Someone explain to me the tidal time flows as to why she was found when she was by Jason floating down the river and where she would have stopped here and flew back. Someone explain to me why Marsh Farm Hall is right in the smack dab middle of that. Okay? And the thing that drives me the most upset about the inquest is they stated that she had water in her lungs. And I was sitting here hoping, please bring in the forensic pathology. Give us proof that that water matches the microorganisms and all those molecules and stuff to the water in the river Wier and say, this is consistent with the water. You didn't get any of that analysis. Go take some water from the fish farm hatchery next to it. I guarantee you, under a microscope, those two waters are going to be distinguishable from one another. Show me the water in her lungs match that water. I know it can change with currents and tide. That's not what I'm saying. If you can go and study medicine into the autopsies of drowning, they do it all the time. And in fact, they encourage it. Why was there no evidence to tie the water in her lungs to that river Wier? I would like to know that. I would also like to test it against the fish hatchery, because Curtis Media did go back there, and it did look kind of creepy. He even said it did itself. Perfect. Right? And then you got Jason referencing Hudson. Right? Prove that to me. So, Rosie, I start to hear things like that, then I go with it because I go with facts. Right? Okay, where's that proof? Right? The water in the lungs. Okay, before I get on to the things, I'm going to go through this right here. I hope everybody's sticking with me. But just drowning in general, okay? And please, this is important, okay? From a defense attorney, just to explain, and this is why I expected it today, and I'm going to show you why we didn't get any answers. Defending a client accused of homicide by drowning. So I guess if you were to say this was Paul or, whatever, that's besides the point, okay? Prosecutors attempting, this is what it takes to prove. So this is what Rosie and those people were expecting to hear today, and they didn't. They started throwing confetti everywhere like all of us content creators are wrong. No, you're the one who looks like the fool, okay? You can't prove homicide by drowning very easily at all. And in fact, if you were going to murder somebody, it is like literally the best way to do it. Hear me out. Prosecutors attempting to obtain a murder conviction against an individual accused of deliberately drowning the victim will often rely on forensic evidence. Okay, and here's the deal. They said that there was no marks on her neck, right? So show strangulation. There was no signs of injuries. There was bruises, which that's a whole nother can of worms, because your heart stops pumping blood. You start to talk. When did those bruises occur? They had to have happened shortly during the incident. So was she kicking around in 2 feet of water? What was hitting her shins, right? I'm not going to get into that, okay? But this all makes sense, and it's not arguing my point. I want you to really think about this in terms of them justifying her drowning, okay? It'll really add clarity to it, okay? It doesn't matter if it's Massachusetts. It's besides the point, okay? If someone is, as an attorney, going to go successful for prosecuting them, they must grasp how forensic experts differentiate between victims who, 1, experienced a fatal or near fatal episode that resulted into a fall into the water, which they're claiming happened with Nicola Bulley here. 2, or were they murdered and later placed into the water to make it appear that the individual drowned? Or 3, drowned as a result of an accident or as a means of committing suicide. And 4, were forcibly held beneath the water by an assailant. I am suggesting that there's not enough evidence to prove that number 4 or number 2 can be ruled out. And that's all I'm saying. Okay? And I've given that evidence in the past. Now why do I say that? Okay? If you're going to commit homicide against somebody by drowning, you're not going to strangle them because it's clear. Like my example. Pardon me for being so morbid here. You're not going to shoot someone on the forehead and then try to get away with staging a drowning. Why? Because it'd be clear as day that that wasn't the cause. So if you're going to try to get away with something, you kind of want to make it look like it, right? And here's the thing that plays into it. She wasn't found for 22 days because it gives it time for her body to break down and wipe away any chances for whatever else was used. She could have been waterboarded. Right? So when the investigator says she was alive at the time she went into the water, okay, here's the problem. She cannot definitively prove that the water she died in was the river Wier. That's why I want evidence of the water in her lungs matches that of the river Wier. And you can't do that? It's being done. Groundbreaking science. In fact, they recommend it now when you dig into it. And I'm not going to get all the way into it. But you can take tissue from the lungs to test it. Right? Take water from 3 different sources around there and see what you get. And if they're all undetermined, then they're undetermined. But at least the attempt shows something. It's ethical. You got nothing. Water in the lungs, therefore we determine drowning. That's it. Well, yeah, I said that in the episode before the inquest. How's it different? Let's hear the medical proof, the explanation, the rationale. They don't have to explain the Wier. They don't have to explain the 22 days. I'm telling you that I believe it's homicide, okay? Because the 22 days was on purpose, right? So if you hold someone down under a bathtub, or if you waterboard them, or if you gave them some type of pill to knock them out and then drown them and they wouldn't even be aware of it, that drug's half-life is going to break down the decomposition, like they said with the alcohol. You're not going to be able to tell it's natural causes of the body, you know, like if it was Benadryl. Did she take Benadryl to help sleep with stress? She very well could have. Some people do. You wouldn't be able to distinguish that from intentional overdose 23 days after her body's been submerged in water. You understand the point? I hope I'm not losing anybody, right? But back to this. I keep getting off track, okay? So how drowning occurs? Drowning occurs when liquid enters the breathing passages, preventing air from getting to the lungs. This can take place in deep water, such as an ocean, or in water as shallow as 6 inches. Although drowning is sometimes used as a method of homicide, it is very difficult to determine the manner of death when a victim is found in the water. When a person is submerged underwater, obviously they hold their breath. Carbon dioxide increases and oxygen decreases until a breaking point is reached. The person involuntarily inhales and takes in water, like they explained today. Whatever the temperature of the water, all humans usually lose consciousness within 3 minutes. Hyperventilating causes a decrease in carbon dioxide, which leads to cerebral hypoxia. Therefore, the person may lose consciousness before reaching the breaking point. After death occurs, the body sinks. It will not move far unless it is carried by strong currents. They're trying to tell you they're strong, but they're not. Okay, well, I mean, they're strong, but they're not like knock you over on your butt. You can walk in them and wade in them. They're not going to cripple you and make you not be able to stand up as an adult human being, okay, who's at least comfortable, holiday comfortable in water, okay? The body decomposes in gas forms, causing it to rise to the surface, where it is usually found. In very cold water, which we have now clear proof, as described today, was the case here, decomposition is delayed, and the body may stay submerged for months. That's the science I'm referring to, Rosie. Months. She doesn't crest that Wier. She would have been found if she goes in here. It's my opinion, but it's also based on science, and that's how I come to my thesis, right? Okay, and the last thing on here, I'm not repeating myself, it all ties together, okay? Drowning is one of the hardest homicides to prove. These investigators want to change that. Since drowning is common, police may initially assume it's an accident. A small group of investigators and divers are pushing for more scrutiny. Just after 1 a.m. on April 27th, police officers in Mount Zion, Illinois, were dispatched to a home to investigate a drowning. The caller was Chad Cutler, who said he found his wife, Lisa, face down in the bathtub moments before her Bible floating in front of her. Cutler told 911 dispatchers he pulled her head out of the water, drained the bathtub, and started giving her CPR, according to the police report. Police in the affluent village were not often called to pull a dead woman from bathtubs. Before Lisa Cutler's body was found, there had been no murders that year in Mount Zion, when Cutler told officers that his wife had probably taken too much of her bipolar medication. Oh, wow. Using vulnerabilities there. Interesting. And slipped in the bathtub or killed herself. The responding officers questioned him, but they didn't rope off the bathroom. Well, that's interesting, because apparently cops just buy right into it, as they would if it were a crime scene. According to court documents, the police called an ambulance, and EMT workers found Lisa Cutler's body on the floor. They were mopping the floor with towels when Sergeant James Herman from the Moscow County Sheriff's Office arrived. After speaking to Cutler and searching the couple's home, he told the officers, according to the police report, this scene needs to be treated as a homicide. Where is the police officer like that in this case? The drowning puzzle. Homicides by drowning are among the most difficult to prove. Rosie, be paying attention here. Evidence, including bodies, can be washed away. Collecting forensics can be very difficult, and since drowning is common, police may initially assume the deaths, such as Lisa Cutler's, are an accident, and that's what I have suggested from the very beginning since I was learning all of this. They were fixed on the working hypothesis. They're avoiding answering any of the important questions, and today we find out there's screaming, there's a man dressed in black. They thought it was a drowning the day Becky Smith came onto the case. They didn't find it. She was in the water, and you were literally hearing it be classified as a drowning, like I told you for the last 3 months and the day leading into the inquest. That's exactly what's happening. Medical examiners only determined drowning as the cause of death after ruling out all other reasonable possible explanations for why the victim ended up in the water, including drug overdoses and heart attacks. Then prosecutors have to prove that the drowning was intentional. Start to see how difficult it gets, and I understand that. I'm not saying that, you're going to prove all this against Paul and Emma. I'm saying, explain to me why the woman in the picture has a ring on her hand, why her hairline in the widow's peak doesn't match Nicola's, why Nicola's nose was shaved off, why is the CCTV video edited, video-wise, manipulated. Was that one of Becky's programs and her top-notch things? Very likely was, right? Pictures being removed off their website. Why are they changing the name to match their story? It's all over the place. And now we hear that there was a suspicious black man dressed, and then we hear of these two separate screams and all this, and but the only thing they want to know is the lady with I don't know what they call it. I forgot what they call it. I remember. The kiddie stroller. And then the lady in red. That's all she cared about. She doesn't care about a red van or the suspicious fisherman. Well, this Fife guy thought it was suspicious. I do too. Right? And I think Peter Falding probably would have too. Right? They have to prove that it was intentional, which often requires building a case and circumstantial evidence. And that's what I'm trying to do. And until you can prove otherwise, that's what I'm saying. I need more of an explanation than simply saying there was water in her lungs, she drowned. Because you know what my comment to that is? Pardon my language. No shit, Sherlock. What medical evidence were you given today? I wasn't given any. Like I said, you go to the Library of Medicine. I know it's the United States, but why is there not forensic testing being done on the water in her lungs then? That's what I want to see. That would explain it. That would prove it. I wouldn't refute that. I would accept it and take a deep sigh of relief. Even if it's undetermined, they could at least show the effort to try to discern that. But they didn't. They simply tell you drowning, and then you got these cactus lickers saying, "Oh, you're wrong." No, okay. Go join some of those Facebook groups, because that's the type of drama that's only meant for that, right? In the United States, 10 people drown daily, according to a study. It's hard to know how many homicides involving drowning there are, as there is a scant research on the subject, and local police statistics aren't always well documented. The FBI's Uniform Crime Report lists 8 homicides by drowning for 2017, which is actually, there were 8 people that died. They were determined later to be killed by homicide, right? Cases surface often in new reports. Since the beginning of April, homicide charges were filed against a woman for drowning her toddler's son, blah, blah, blah. A Canadian man was charged in his wife's drowning, which was previously ruled an accident. Okay? Similar to the way a land-based crime scene is marked, police divers need to be able to mark underwater evidence with a buoy and then provide sketches showing the precise location. Divers need to write reports. I still have a copy of the recovery of the body, and they didn't do any of this. There was no tent, and I hate to bring it back up, and I'm sorry for family and friends that are listening. The way they drug her up that hill, I don't care how the environment was. Give me the damn rope, and I'll do it with some more respect. It was ridiculous, right? As another homicide investigation, the scene needs to be roped off. In Lisa Cutler's case, this case here, her husband removed her from the tub. Emergency technicians took her to the hospital, wherever. She was declared dead. We had a disturbed crime scene, a first assistant state's attorney said. A search for clues. Another stumbling block for the Cutler case was the coroner's initial assessment that the death was possibly due to drugs, alcohol, or a heart attack. There's no definitive test to determine that a death caused by drowning was caused by drowning, said Dr. Arden, president of National Association of Medical Examiners. I think he's got a little credibility here. So, Rosie, right? And I don't mean to pick on you. I'm talking to all the people hating here and thinking that the answers are here and we're all wrong. You can't lose faith in this, right? There's no definitive test to determine the death was caused by drowning. While medical examiners can find fluids in someone's lungs, the test only shows that the person was in the water. The cause of death could be unrelated, including heart attack, stroke, reaction. Only after ruling out all the possibilities will a medical examiner note drowning on a death certificate. Medical examiners then search for signs of struggle, such as bruising, to indicate that a person was held underwater, which you didn't see. But if you're doing it on purpose, you'd be sure not to leave those signs. Right? Arden said it would be hard to kill an adult by drowning without leaving behind clues from struggle. It's up to investigators to find those clues, which I am saying is the reason why there was 22 days in between. Because the police were that heavy looking in the water, whoever had her knew it, and they very carefully waited until the focus shifted away to then put her in. Why are people forgetting that fact? Because that's the truth, that's not my opinion, right? And I'm not going to go any further into that. But with that said, what I am going to say is the reason why I have a problem with it is because Becky claimed to acknowledge that they were considering all avenues, right? But her complete disregard of any of the relevant, honest questions, and then admitting that she didn't check Grape's pub for 2 weeks. I mean, you heard some screams, and we'll get into it. Why is Penny totally face planted today? I mean, her timeline doesn't add up. The fact that she wasn't in court was weird. And even when Curtis was there, she's also spastic. I mean, she's got a little pent up energy regarding this topic. I don't know if she's that high strung all year round, every day of her life, but almighty, definitely isn't comfortable around this case, I can tell you that. Which is weird, related to Paul. It's weird. Ron, his behavior is kind of weird. I'm not saying it has anything to do with it, but he knows more than he's saying. You know, how did nobody see what happened, but yet two ladies further away both heard a scream opposite ends. One by the tennis club and the other one in her backyard garden up allotment lane. One here, one here. Heard screams over here. But yet you have Ron and Penny and did you hear Ron or Penny say anything about screams today? How did those two ladies hear it but they didn't? Like, that's what I mean by critical thought. Once you hear these things, why is Penny and why is she climbing over this stile? And I thought about it a little bit further. If you didn't know who someone's dog is as she's trying to make it present to be, would you walk up to a random stranger dog and attempt to tie it up? I sure as hell wouldn't, and I wouldn't suggest that anybody try to do that because most dogs aren't going to react in a positive way if you are a stranger. Right? I mean, that would be her way out. Go and get bit and then argue to have the dog put down or whatever. You get the point. But the fact that she didn't know who he was, I went and wrangled him and tied him. He appeared giddy. Giddy's an oversell, right? Ugh. That's what I'm saying. But yet some people are saying Paul's off the hook. Emma, apologize. What the hell are you talking about? What were you listening to? Or you're just too into those spikes on the tongue, I guess. Gosh, I don't know. And the reason I keep saying that, because I don't know how to explain it. When I read that stuff, it's just like someone licking a cactus, like completely like zombie brain. It goes in both their ears and they don't even think about it and then they spit it back out. Like, did you even think about it? Right? And I don't mean to come down. It's just upsetting because you put this work in, this stuff comes out, and then people are like, all right, lost cause, let's move on. Come on. We got to do better, right? Okay, that's enough on the drowning. But now let's get into... So you get my main point here. They're saying she went in below the bench somehow, right? Again, why was that area never specified before? It wasn't cordoned off in any way. When did they determine that? Dr. James Adeley is having divers go out April 4th, which is 2 months after the event, and then uses their evidence and their observations 2 months removed, but yet doesn't think it's important to reach out to Peter Falding and get his side sonar and all that. Well, why not? Well, because that's going to show that she wasn't in there, and then you have to answer the question as to, okay, she drowned, but where was she? And you're noticing that they're ice skating and pirouetting around that. They don't have to confront the Wier. They don't have to talk about 22 days she was in there. They just fall under the doctrine of the It's kind of hard to tell, It's medical examiners determine it by excluding all other odds, and it's like everybody knew it was going to be well, at least I thought. Apparently not. Right, and this is already carrying on way longer than I wanted it to. But let's briefly hit on these, and then we can move on to day 2, right? Nicola Bulley Inquest Live. Dog walker's cause of death revealed, but no evidence of third-party harm. Okay. Nicola Bulley was alive when she entered the water. Okay. Well, yeah, but you don't prove that water was the River Wier in any way whatsoever. You say that there's a disturbance of where she slipped. Again, where was that at? How are you proving that water in her lungs matches that water versus like the hatchery? And yes, it's possible. I already showed you medical journal that proves that. Right? They're fixing it in as a guarantee, and I'm asking is, whoa. What makes you guarantee that it was the River Wier? Do you have evidence of the water in her lungs matching? Because I would like to see it. Of course, she'll probably have some from the River Wier because she was in there for a while. But does she have some of those hatchery molecules? No, I'm not pointing the finger there. I'm saying, does she have something in her lungs of a water source that isn't consistent with that in the River Wier? Where's that forensic evidence? Right? Where's the explanation to explain the bruising? Right? You know that bruising can occur after death, but usually it's when the heart's pumping. What explains the shins? Her kicking rocks in 2 feet of water in the 10 seconds it took her to die? Come on. But yet you had crews in there in thermal diving suits for the next week in roughly the same temperatures, and none of them suffered a single incident. I mean, come on. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's almost insulting how they expect the public to just accept it and move on. And apparently the police don't have to answer to anything. Like, I can't believe it. And Snowden, like, geez, don't even get me started. And they reiterate this point like 15 times. Right? The coroner asked if there was any evidence of third-party involvement. Okay? So like I explained to you already with the drowning, there's no really clear way to determine that it was by homicide beforehand. It'd be really hard to be able to tell, yes, if they were strangled and whatnot. But remember the Sherlock Holmes example. I'm going to say this real quick because it's important and easy to understand if you follow it. If someone takes a pill of, let's say, fentanyl, and they overdose and they die, and the medical examiner determines this individual died from a fentanyl overdose, the overall consensus is going to be that this individual overdosed probably by taking a drug and then they died. There's nothing in that autopsy that tells you that pill was actually forced or they were manipulated into taking it. It only gives you stomach evidence to show that this is what killed the body, right? So you have to dig deeper into the background, the witnesses, the stories, timeline of events leading up to determine who was this character he was with. You get it. Because in the Sherlock episode, there was a serial killer and another guy. And there's 2 pills. One had the killer ingredient, one didn't. The serial killer walked up to Sherlock and said, you pick one, I get one. Whichever one you take, that's your fate. Okay? And the serial killer tries to use psychology to manipulate people, and he's claiming that he's so good at it that every time he gets the individual to take the pill and kill themselves. But they're not catching him because the police are just kind of like, oh, look, it's a drowning. Oh, no, it's a drowning. They're not really looking into a cause of death that's really hard to discern. They're just kind of saying, yeah, that's a tough one. That's the puzzle of drowning. It's drowning. It's drowning. Without ever really testing themselves and going deeper. And I think in this case, there's enough there, the picture manipulation, the video, all of that stuff, that warrants further investigation. You hear the screaming. You hear the man dressed in black. Well, I'm sure we're going to hear tomorrow about the, the welfare check. Okay? But in the taking the pill thing, right? So the deal is his whole thing of getting away with it, and he's kind of being a smart alcoholic when he's talking to Sherlock, is they never catch him because they never really look too far into it. They just presume it's a overdose, and that's what I'm saying in this case. Give me evidence to prove that it was drowning with that water in that lake, okay? They're already saying today that it's officially, they believe it's below the bench. How does she crest that Wier? I'm not being intentionally devil's advocate, the YouTuber who wants to create all these headlines and false theories. Listen to my question and answer it yourself. Coroner's inquest is suggesting below the bench. Why wasn't she found? I raised my hand. I put my faith in Peter following his expertise and his observations. I probably couldn't have this conviction if I didn't have him, so I appreciate his work, and he's God sent, right? Hope he's doing well. I would love to hear his response on all of this. But I'll leave him in peace. I've always wanted to contact him, actually, but I don't want to bother him. But translating that to this case, what I'm asking, because of all these anomalies, Rosie, the picture, that's Emma, the widow's peak, the nose being removed off, and I'm not going to repeat it all over again. When Paul dropped the CCTV, that, you get all of that, okay? Those need to be answered. And that's the investigation of detectives. Why? Because that is what Nicola deserves. And that's what her family deserves. I'm not apologizing to anybody until the questions around the truth of this lady are given a respectable answer. Okay? That's me being neutral, not taking sides. I've let the evidence and the analysis lead me to people that I want to specifically question. It's not easy for me to point Emma out and to point Paul out, but it's based on facts. I want to find logical, rational reasoning as to how this apparently could just be a tragic accident and two people farther away heard her scream, which sounded like a surprise, and she apparently slipped in. Penny apparently had some headphones on, had her eyes closed, and was rocking out because she was there, but she missed everything. But we're just supposed to believe she slipped in, she drowned, and just like the Sherlock episode, oh yeah, he took the pill and the fentanyl. My question is why are you not questioning the things that don't add up in this case? She wasn't found. She didn't crest the Wier. You didn't find her for 22 days. The guy who found her comes up with a new mystic narrative every other week. His dog died. 2 fish died. No disrespect to any in the community that do it honestly, that type of work, right? But this dude don't add up. And I believe that him in that comment, right? You're not going to... I play chess, okay? I'm not into this checkers crap. So you can... I love the engagement right here. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Right? Yeah, but even in the headline, no evidence of third-party harm, no evidence. That isn't the Inquest job. They're already starting to jam it down your throat. Right? So the key points: no evidence Nicola Bulley was harmed as the cause of death revealed. Okay, but there's evidence to have suspicion. The man in black, right? The screams. Why was the Fitbit unsynced? Why was she not in the river for 22 days? Why was she found shortly after the police shifted focus? And that right there, the police should critically take a step back. And even if it's innocent, and let's say she slipped and she drowned and she died, they still, out of respect for the integrity of the investigation, have to take a step back and say, okay, this appears odd, maybe it's not, but we still need to look at it. Is it just mere coincidence that she, no disrespect, lack of a better word, popped up when we shifted? To me, that's not a coincidence. But to the police, it is. Right? And then you have Snowden already projecting the reviews and the day she's going to be found. It's so bad. I honestly cannot believe. And then the inquest is just even making it worse. Nicola Bulley's cause of death was drowning. Nicola had not been drinking before death. Why even put this in here? Like I told you in my video leading up to it, watch them use the vulnerabilities. Why does the fact that she had not been drinking before her death have anything to do with the information released today? It shouldn't be. Nobody asked the question. The only people who are wondering it, who are the ones that believe it was the vulnerabilities that you guys set the stage with, which I never believed because it was clear that you were overselling that, right? Almost freezing water was flowing twice as fast on the day Nicola died. Okay, Nicola was alive when she entered the water. Right. Prove to me it's the River Wier. Seriously. Because it's not. She wasn't in that water. Now, my frustration is, oh, but you have to prove it, you have to prove it. You even said the prosecutor, it's hard to prove in court, right? If you have an investigation team from the very beginning that can sniff it out, acknowledge where they're wrong, maybe we need to reapproach this and actually go out and try to obtain that circumstantial evidence and really look into it and screen it, it happens. That's why, and attorneys, investigators want to change that. I'm just another olive branch of those same people saying that something doesn't add up here. She didn't crest the Wier from where she was found. Jason's even saying she's floating down the river, and apparently they don't think that's important to say either. Oh, she's found muddy. Right? Okay, so I'm going to go through this quickly and comment on things as we go. Inquest begins into the death of Nicola Bulley. I'm not going to read all this because we know the basics, right? Okay, so this is about Peter falling and him not being included. I've already covered that in my other episode, okay? So 16 witnesses to be heard from the inquest. My colleagues Holly Evans and Tara Cohen are reporting live from the Nicola Bulley inquest in Preston. The inquest is expected to hear from 16 witnesses today, including a home office pathologist who would have been able to give the forensic evidence, a specialist in body recovery from water. I wonder if he critiqued their process. A leading detective from Lancashire Police, which I have no credibility there, and location experts who analyze Miss Bulley's Fitbit, which, how that's going to have any relevance. Friends of Miss Bulley are also due to give evidence, as well as parents from her children's school. Her husband, Paul Ansell, is listed to speak on Tuesday as a part of the two-day hearing. Nicola's partner and sister to give evidence. Nicola Bulley's partner and sister are set to give evidence during the inquest to her death, which I found this interesting. Of course, Paul and Louise, but why not dad, mom? Some of her friends that I prefer, that I've talked about in the past, that are genuine. And they're going to give evidence on Tuesday, which we both know they know how to talk in front of a court. And as we saw today, it's only going to be a minute or two, no questions next. The county hall in Preston was busy with members of the public and media on Monday morning, the two-day hearing. Nicola Bulley's family arrived in council chamber. The family is filing into the council chamber now, including Nicola Bulley's husband, Paul Ansell. They were among a group that entered through the door on the right-hand side and have taken their seats on the right. When I read this, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Inquest begins as coroner passes condolences to Nicola's family. Coroner addresses intense media speculation and public interest. The coroner has referenced the intense media and public interest in Miss Bulley's death. He said the inquest is not designed to address social media issues, nor to advance theories those on social media contribute to. As a result of the substantial social media interest and unusual social media commentary surrounding Miss Bulley's death, said the coroner, Lancashire County Council thought it necessary to put in additional security measures to ensure the safety of everyone attending the inquest. He added a warning, which is something they don't usually do, if anyone has the slightest idea of disrupting, which is weird because, it's almost like they anticipate the reaction to what they're about to say, which to me just shows that they know they're up to something, right? Nicola Bulley's cause of death was drowning, or just come right out and say it, which, like I said, it shouldn't be a surprise. Nicola Bulley's cause of death, and the fact that you can't prove anything else was there either, because you're usually not going to, right? Nicola Bulley's cause of death was drowning. The inquest was told today. Dr. Allison Armour told the court, I gave the cause of death as drowning. The watery fluid identified within the stomach and also in the lungs themselves are classical features as we see in cases of drowning. Like, this is, any lay person could say this. Like, where's the actual science of it, the explanation, right? Nicola was alive when she entered the water, pathologist tells Inquest. And again, the water, where you can't prove it's river wire. And I'm not being, oh, you're just picking at it. No, I'm not. Because in modern forensic pathology, typically in a situation like this, if the police didn't suspect anything, so they didn't do it anyways. But Dr. James Adeley has a responsibility, do things impartially, right? And the home office pathologist who specializes in forensics, why would you not test that water? Simply, very generically, alive when she entered the water, but you don't know what water. Like I said, she could have been waterboarded, she could have been drowned. Maybe there was a little, like I said, drug half-life. Maybe you want that to process all the way through and decompose, or maybe if there's a little bit of mark here or there, or something on her face, or, wherever, or scratches, you literally decompose a bit, right? Miss Bulley was alive when she entered the water because it's an active process to swallow and inhale water into the lungs. My opinion as to the cause of death is it was a drowning, which, like I said, doesn't mean anything, because It just means nothing else adds up to it. And again, she was found in the water. The coroner asked if there was any evidence of third-party involvement. And again, you're not going to find that. Why is he drumming this home? In her opinion, there was not. This is not his scope. This is not his scope. She also added, but you see, he's responding to the media speculation by trying to indirectly hit home, no third-party involvement, see? No third-party involvement, see? Nothing to see here. She also added there was no evidence Ms. Bulley had been harmed by a third party. See, why are they reiterating that here? That's not what this is focused on. Right, Adeley? You said that. Coroner addresses intense media and speculation. Right? Like, oh. Mother of two discovered caked in mud. Given evidence, home office pathologist Dr. Allison Armour said that Miss Bulley had been discovered caked in mud. The bruises were discovered on her lower limbs, including to the front of her shin and right knee. So her right knee and the front of her shin, right? No signs of asphyxiation or hemorrhage were discovered, and when asked if there was any sign of trauma to the neck, she replied, none whatsoever. So they're going straight to, was she strangled? No, whatsoever. Okay, got to discount that. Okay. Like the Sherlock example. She had a pill in her stomach that processed through that you wouldn't be able to distinguish from her normal usage, like the alcohol, that maybe she was sleeping or then she was drowned. But see, Dr. Allison Armour, nothing she said clarifies that because they don't look at it any further. They just assume that was an accident because that was a working hypothesis. Dr. James Adeley didn't trust Peter Falding and him basically saying, we would have found her by now, and instead he sends out his own experts floating on their back up to the Wier. Oh, is this possible? Nope, you don't even hear them address it. Why? Because they can't and they don't know how to. Right? You hear water in your lungs, but you don't hear that it's proof of that. Right? I would want to compare it to the hatchery. Bruises. Knee and lower limbs. You know, was this something did she fall on her knee? Did she kick something? Was she struggling? Right? You can speculate all day on that. None whatsoever. The toxicology results found, right, like, why is this even in here? Now, I get it. If there was alcohol found in, then you could hit on her vulnerabilities. But, like, why are they finding it important to bring up? Because they want you to go and believe, like, these people, oh, it's vulnerabilities. Yep, nope, she didn't have any in her stomach. But there's no basis for this. Why even bring this up? It just fits the vulnerabilities that they brought up and apologized for even mentioning to. They're trying to hint at. There could have been alcohol in her stomach, but this day there wasn't. Like, this is character shaming. What the hell does this have anything to do? Because if they tested for it, they didn't find it, why the hell are you even bringing it up? Like I said, if that's the case, did she have any, Advil in her system? Why aren't you telling us that too? Why don't you tell her what she last ate? Well, if you had to eat the alcohol because you want all those grass grazers out there to go, oh, yep, see, vulnerability. She probably drank. She went on an episode. See? Like, this is stupid. Why the hell is this even being brought up? Very low levels of alcohol in her blood, said Dr. Armour, which indicated alcohol levels, in my opinion, consistent with microbiological postmortem activity. Okay, doctor. What about the microbiological postmortem activity of the other fluids? Right? Because you very clearly have competency to determine that. You're stating that. Why aren't you explaining that in the water? Right? She explained this is the release of alcohol by bacteria produced by the body when the person dies. Right? Court showing images of area loose mud leading down to water. The court is now being shown images, which I don't think this is the right one. It can't be. Where Miss Bulley is suspected of falling to the river. Underwater specialist Matthew Thackeray has pointed to an area of loose mud leading down to the water. When the bench... wouldn't Peter Falding have noticed it? This area? If there was an area, don't you think they would have pointed it out? You think Paul would have pointed it out? Do you think if the police found something that led to that, they would have told Paul and Emma? Like, Rosie, these are the things that is pretty harmful when you get, those cactus, because you can't think about it critically, right? Right? So he uses divers on April 4th and this Thackeray dude to somehow justify something a couple months later. Right? And they can't prove this, but neither can I. But he warns against speculation. This is speculation. Nothing they're saying puts her there. Nothing. They said today. Water in her lungs, okay. Where's the water from? Right? Still connected to the microphone, team's call and discovered they're just minutes she's believed into the water. Nicola had not been drinking before her death, pathologist. See, why is this being brought up? Who's asking these questions? See, it's Paul using the vulnerabilities. Like, it shines right through. Why is this being brought up? How does alcohol have anything to do with the events of that day? You hear the witnesses later say that she appeared normal. She didn't seem... Why is all this being... Say she's normal, they keep hitting this. Nicola Bulley had not been drinking before her death. We had 9:30 on a Friday morning. She just dropped her kids off at school. Are you insinuating that she typically does, or she has a routine of doing that? Like, I don't like that. Why are you talking about that? Right? Dr. James Adeley, senior coroner for Lancashire Police, asked Dr. Allison Armour, who was giving evidence at the inquest at County Hall in Preston, at the time of her death, she had no alcohol in her bloodstream. Dr. Armour replied, "That's my opinion." See, like, why is he talking about alcohol in relation to the cause of his death? See, Adeley's leading her into this question. Okay, so to make sure, that's my opinion. Why are you talking about alcohol when you're using drowning as a cause of death? Like, why are you talking about this, Adeley? If you didn't find it, where are you using it? Because you're wanting to get the sheep out there to just get a glimpse of the vulnerability. Oh, yep, right? Almost freezing water was flowing twice as fast. The court is now being shown a video of the section of the river where Nicola Bulley was thought to be on its bank. Okay, but remember Jason Rothwell said he first saw her coming down the middle, right? Mr. Thackeray is in the video, and now it says bank, right? I thought it was in the brush and the reeds. Now it's on the bank, okay? Standing in the middle of the river and saying the stream is currently pushing him downstream at walking pace. The water on the 27th was flowing at a faster pace, he said, twice as fast. The water was 4 degrees Celsius on the day. In question, he said, very cold, almost freezing. If you fell in accidentally cold water shock, then this just makes me mad. You know, where the body was found. No talking about where the witness first saw her floating down, because that's where you get the Fleetwood tidal measurements. That makes sense. That's what I'm expecting. You know, an actual real scientific explanation, right, into the cause of her death. And we didn't get that today, right? Location and where the dog was found, where her body was found. Nothing about the Wier, why she wasn't found for 22 days. The ironic part that she was put in there a week after, right? Map shows exact location where her body was found. Okay, well, that's not where she was found, because according to Jason, she was found floating down the middle of the stream. So they shave off what they want to, right? No evidence Nicola Bulley was harmed as cause of death revealed. But see, the thing is you also can't determine that it's 100% that there wasn't either. Because as we've seen, you can't always tell, right? Because situations like this happen. There's 8 in America that happen every year. That's all I'm suggesting. Give me a reason to believe and prove to me that it's not that. Because everything leads to me that that's exactly what it is. Right? There's no evidence that Nicola Bulley was assaulted or harmed before she went into the river Wier. Okay, again, she went into the water. You don't know she went into the river Wier. Stop forcing it. She does have bruises, and I'm sorry, but I would like to ask the question, is there a potential or possibility for assault or harm to have taken place that over the process of 22 days would in some way make it more difficult to discern or determine? By default, the answer would have to be, well, I guess yes, you could say that in some occurrences. But no, was her neck fine? Yep, okay, let's move on. Right? How about her windpipes? Was her trachea broke? Was it a sudden influx? Was it forced down? None of that is addressed. None of it. It's real basic ABCs 101, learn to ride a bike explanations, right? Her body was discovered in the water by passerby weeks later. The psychic who can't keep his story straight, right? A postmortem examination found no signs that she had been assaulted or harmed. I mean, well, she was dead. She had bruises on her shin, her knee. She screamed, which in my opinion was not her going in the water. I think she was caught by surprise, and that's when she was kidnapped, taken, or removed through the caravan parkway. I've said it before. I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense. She wasn't in that water. She would have been found, right? She would have been. Doctors explain how body entering cold water can result in drowning, right? blah, 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 or evidence on how the body reacts to emptying cold water. They explain cold water shock described. And again, this is already presuming that she fell in by accident or stuff. Okay, skip all that part. We don't know what happened in this case, but we're saying that she did. We have no proof of it. They explain cold water shock describes the initial response. Okay, we all understand that. Okay, uncontrollable breath up to 2-3 liters. They said adding that at 3.6 degrees of water. See, they're trying to say all this stuff to make it sound more believable, and it's... I get it, but we get the idea that she had water in her lungs and she drowned. We don't need the... It's ridiculous. Right? How about you talk about the water specifics, the microbiology of that, you know? Talk about the force, how much was there, is what's typical of one in a drowning victim, right? In Miss Bulley's case, a weight of around whatever she would have had inhaled 1 to 2, like this is so irrelevant. Hence, they concluded I would only take 1 to 2 breaths, and how much would she have to inhale if she was waterboarded or if she was drowned in a tub? Conscious or unconscious? Like, why aren't, I mean, you know what I mean? The same. Nicola could have entered a state of very rapid incapacity. Like, this is all just a waste garbage. So the best case scenario was someone of Nikki's build and weight. Like, this is all irrelevant. Tell me how she crested the Wier. Because in those temperatures, she would remain submerged for months. Science says it. Tell me how she got over that Wier. Nicola Bulley died from drowning and was alive when she entered the water. Or she was alive before she was waterboarded, or she was alive before she was submerged in the tub. Right? Prove those other ones. You can't. And that's what I'm saying. Who carried out the post-mortem examination said the evidence of the water in her lungs and stomach led her to conclude the cause of death was drowning. Well, yeah, right? And there was no other third... You can't say that. Just because there's no evidence that has a sticky note that has a picture of the face of the person who did it doesn't mean that there isn't. What if it's someone cleverly involved who planned and orchestrated this whole damn thing that's one step ahead of everybody? And that's exactly what's going on, okay? So, no third party involved. And again, it's the inquest. Why are they saying this for the 5th time? They're trying to quiet the speculation and only ramps it up. I can't believe the professionalism throughout this case. It is so bad. Inquest has resumed. Nicola Bulley may have had to hold breath for one. Okay, this is all... Just, like, I get the whole point, but, like, she drowned in the water. Why can't you prove that she drowned in that water? How she crested that Wier? She was found floating down the river. And you're saying she's muddy. And she was on the bank. Nothing adds up. The cop says nothing suspicious. It's very clearly more and more suspicious. And all they want to do is talk about cold water. It takes about 2 liters. Initial gasp. We understand what the concept of drowning is. I knew that. I think everybody knew that going was going to be drowning. I mean, this is all just... people that lick cactuses, listen to people in suits say this stuff. They believe that it's true, and then they move on. That's very clearly what the purpose is. Jesus. Sorry, I'm tired. I keep referencing the cactus thing, but it's just frustrating as all get out. It was a holiday swimmer. It's almost impossible to swim against fast current, right? When this is just stupid, too. How about the depth of the water and watching all your people on April 4th, all the rescue teams for the 22 days afterwards there, watching them handle those elements. Let's not get specific and say holiday swimmer. Let's talk about the type of water in her lungs. How about that? Let's get specific on that stuff, right? Let's get to the specifics of how the bruising was created when her heart was still pumping, right? There was no evidence of assault or a third party. Okay, then where are the bruises from? I'm not saying there are, but explain them, right? Was it blood settling after die? I mean, you don't hear any of that crap, right? Highly likely to be almost impossible to swim against the current. Okay, you stand up. You stand up and then you don't die in 10 seconds. How about that? And yes, you can stand up right where they're saying she slipped. I've seen people do it. And they said there was no hemorrhaging, so they can't say she slipped and hit her head, right? Mother at Nicholas Children's School said she saw nothing of concern on the morning of her disappearance. And Mother Children's School told the court she saw Miss Bulley with her dog in the school park on the morning of her disappearance. She was acting similar to how she would on any other day, doing the school run, reporting nothing of concern in Miss Bulley's demeanor. She appeared how she normally would, said Miss Kieran. Nothing I think would be any different from a normal day. The pair had a lighthearted conversation about Miss Bulley's dog, Willow. The coroner asked if Miss Bulley had come across as anxious or in a low mood. See, there he is again, projecting her vulnerabilities in mental health. He's bringing up the alcohol. Is it true that you didn't find anything? That's my opinion. Okay, we're just checking. Now he's asking this witness, did she come across as anxious and in a low mood? Like, his perspective is, was she having suicidal ideations? Could it have been an accident? Right? What do you have to prove that? What Paul said? Right? Like, why is he asking these questions? He's supposed to be an expert, and I'm not impressed. Right? Local, and this has just blew my head off. Local saw a man in black at the end of allotment lane on the morning Nicola disappeared. In a written statement, being heating engineer Richard Fife confirmed that he saw Miss Bulley between 9:10 and 9:20 near the river. While walking his dog, he also passed two other dog walkers and a man in black who was standing at the end of allotment lane while his dog attempted to approach Miss Bulley's Springer Spaniel, Willow. Mr. Fife said that he was in a rush and did not speak to her. I could see she had her phone out in front of her, which is why Becky's saying that, and was looking at the screen. I could not see to hear if she was talking, he said. When leaving the area, Miss Fife noticed that the man was wearing black clothes was still in the same location. While he did his little loop with his dog, which he found quite strange, as he did not recognize him as local. If true and authentic, and I believe it is, but you have no reason to believe otherwise, why the heck would he get on the stand and say this if it wasn't, right? Right? If he honestly felt at that time, and it's not growing more so over time, right? And he's not like convincing himself over time, right? Because of what he found out afterwards, right? But if he authentically felt that it was quite strange, which I believe him, and I recognize him as local, okay, then who was that? I have a few ideas. And no, that doesn't get rid of Paul whatsoever, right? But this is interesting. Especially because Becky, like, how is this not important? She even says it. I myself don't find a reason why two men would be suspicious. You kidding me? Mother at local school said she heard Nicola's dog barking. Claire Cheshire, a mother at St. Michael's on Wier, which is the school of Nicola Bulley's two children, said she saw Miss Bulley outside the school gates on the morning of her disappearance just after 8:35 a.m. Miss Cheshire, sales executive, was talking with a group of mothers when Miss Bulley walked past and greeted the group, before bending down to say hello to Miss Cheshire's dog and smiling. Miss Cheshire said this was very normal behavior for Miss Bulley. Miss Cheshire said she followed a similar path to Miss Bulley on her dog walk on the 27th of January on what was a very quiet morning. She's even acknowledging that after the fact, once she learned of where Nicola Bulley's route was, she reflected back and I kind of walked, relatively the same route, right? And I didn't notice anything. Miss Cheshire spotted Miss Bulley when she heard Miss Bulley's dog, Willow, barking in a vegetation a little bit behind Nikki. What was Willow barking at, right? When the coroner asked if Miss Cheshire knew what Willow was barking at, Miss Cheshire said she did not know, although she had not seen anybody else. Well, if there was somebody there for her, Nicola, they're not going to sit on a log waiting and wave at Miss Cheshire as she walks by, right? I mean, she added only 5 minutes before I'd walked past that section and not noticed anything usual. Oh, yeah, but she wasn't looking for it either, right? Why would you, right? Mother who received last text message from Nicola gives evidence. Like, all these witnesses are great. Thank you for each of you guys who've stepped up. Lucia Musella, a fellow mother with children at the same school as Miss Bulley's daughter, said that she received a text message from Miss Bulley on Facebook Messenger. The two exchanged details about organizing a play date for the children, right? Minutes before she was last sighted alive, the inquest heard that a group of school mothers who would also organize social whatever, Miss Bulley planning on coming for one or two. And she didn't take her own life, right? Nicola's dog was acting giddy. This is weird. A woman was described the moment she discovered Nicola Bulley's phone and dog Willow. So this would be Penny. Penny Fletcher, who runs a nearby campsite. Notice her word giddy, right? So let's define giddy. Having a sensation of whirling and tendency to fall or stagger, dizzy. right? What does being giddy mean? Joyfully elated, euphoric. Okay, that's what she's saying, right? Okay, a woman has described it, and you got to remember. Let's rewind. Penny apparently never saw Nicola, but she's accounting that when she saw Nicola's dog, she's labeling him as giddy. Now I'm telling you right now, if she slipped in, fell in, whatever God have you happen, she fell in that river. Do I honestly believe that Willow's exhibited response to his best friend would come across to somebody authentically as giddy? Absolutely not. Giddy to me sounds like an oversell by the person describing the dog, which would be Penny Fletcher in this case. Something's weird with her. Now, I don't know how old she is, 70. I personally cannot conceptualize a scenario where she somehow was the cause of Nicola going into the water. I just can't. I just can't. Now, I do think she probably was aware of anybody else around, or maybe what happened, right? Especially with the 9:15, 9:30 mix-up, which was just gold, right? I saw a Springer Spaniel loose. It was near the bench and going right towards the river where it drops down very steeply. I wouldn't say it was acting chaotic at all. It was a bit giddy, yes, like that, whatever. Just trying to sound non-suspicious, but yet using that word, given the circumstances, situation, understanding now that that would have been shortly after Nicola went into that water. The dog's not going to be giddy. That's just you trying to put sprinkles on the cupcake and try to tell everybody it's good when in fact it tastes like shit. That's what that's what that is. Miss Fletcher found the phone as well as a dog harness and tied Willow to the bench. She later found out it was Miss Bulley's dog and heard that she had gone missing. A retired care home worker, Susan Jones, was called shortly before 10 a.m. Miss Fletcher informed that a dog was tied to the bench near the river. In turn, she contacted her husband, Roger, which we've seen, walking their dog, asking him to check and identify its owners. Mr. Jones and Willow and Miss Holy's mobile phone and asked his wife to take a 15-minute journey towards him to help him establish who owned the missing persons, which is weird because why is he having his wife come there to join him? You know, so he has an eyewitness account for his alibi for being there too, you know. Something could be weird with him. I don't know. I can tell you after this, the man in black's interesting. I have one person in particular. Oh, maybe two. I guess that little wild and out grandson over there with Penny's, he's a little wild and out dude. I'm not saying it's him, but I have somebody who I think that could be. Sorry, my voice. I haven't had much sleep. Right, but the whole Penny has become suspicious. Roger, right? But here's the crazy thing. They're all connected to Paul, right? I mean, come on. Come on, right? I'm not doing conspiracy. I'm just saying, right? Penny dug her own hole today. I don't care what anybody said. She definitely did. She's got some answering to do. Mother at school said she heard a scream coming from the river. Mother school told the court she was in her back garden at 9:35 when she heard a scream coming from the direction of the river. Helen O'Neill, whose garden backs the allotment lane, said it was a quick high to low pitch and over in seconds. It was not alarming, said the nurse, because she's used to hearing the sounds of children playing in the nearby school, although not usually at that time. She said, I pictured two female teenagers messing around on the river path. Two female teenagers. So is she insinuating a second female? I don't know. I'm not saying that. It's interesting that she's projecting. Like, I get that you picture something, but what would formulate this second person into your mind's eye? Did you hear a second alternative female voice? You know, that's where Penny, right? And there were no other sounds. So I didn't think anything of it until later that night after speaking to Nikki's dad and sister, which is interesting, right? Miss Neal said she last saw Miss Bulley, so she knows the family. Miss Bulley, when she was dropping her children off at school in that morning. She said she was speaking to two friends in a school park at 8:40 when she spotted Miss Bulley at the boot of her car with her dog Willow talking to somebody at the other side of the car park. Who would that be? Remember that video Curtis Media was in the trees and he made the comment about how that's where Nicola drops her daughters off at school? That's on the other side of the car park. That just popped in my mind. The coroner asked if there wasn't anything unusual you were able to what's he's insinuating here? Suicidal ideations. He's trying to ask, was there anything off with her? Now, why does he keep hitting that? To prove that she wasn't safe? So then what? To justify an accident? the orchestra, like, see, that's the thing. This is my whole philosophy on this whole case. And gosh, I keep talking, holy smokes. If it's the truth, it's not that hard to sell. You don't have to sell it. But when you have to patch holes where people didn't do what they were supposed to do but say they did, say that they're looking at all options but they really didn't, investigated it thoroughly but claim that they did, and then they have to fill things in place to kind of make it look like that, it turns out like this. Right? And I hate to poke holes in it, but this is like... we're learning... In my opinion, what we're learning from this inquest, the only purpose of Dr. James Adeley is to illustrate you a canvas to give you an understanding as to how she drowned and where. The sounds, the ladies, so-and-so saw her there, she interacted, water in her lungs, she was found at this point, this is where she went missing, we determined she drowned, there's water in her lungs, no alcohol in her system. That's all they have to do. All these other glaring things like the screams and stuff, that's police work. That's separate and apart and already closed. That's the problem. So that's why I'm just like, what planet or what are you watching, Rosie? You know? 2 women heard a scream near Riverside of morning in Nicola Bulley's camp. 2 women have told the inquest into the death of Nicola Bulley of hearing a scream near the Riverside in the morning she vanished. Said she was with her dogs in the garden, which we already talked about. I heard a scream. It's nothing alarming. It was just over in a couple seconds. I'm quite used to hearing the children in the school back, but it was not that noise. I vividly remember thinking it's unusual at this time. In my head, I had 2 females walking along by the river, and one jumped out on the other. I didn't think anything of it until later. One jumped out onto the other. A second witness account. In her mind, I vividly remember thinking. And then this other lady says, I pictured 2 female teenagers messing around. That's Helen. Then we get this lady. Another mother, she looked vacant, but that was unusual. Clausen said, no emotions or sadness. After attending a meeting at the tennis club, Miss Kaysen heard a scream while getting into her car. I was just about to get into my car, and I heard a very short scream, and my immediate thought was someone was having a bit of fun at the back of the graveyard, which is She's Tennis Club, which is right there. Graveyard, let me go in. It's right here. And she's saying back. There's trees here you can't really see. She's hearing it in this vicinity. Okay, allotment lane is referring up there to this too. So she's referring to here, back of the cemetery specifically, to the trees she can't see. She's saying over here. Okay, this is where she last was. And this lady in her garden's up here. So you tell me how this lady in her garden, she says 2 ladies jumped out and scared another on the path. This lady tennis club is saying right here, but yet we're supposed to believe right here. And I think it's really telling. In this account, I vividly remember thinking it's usual at this time. I had 2 females walking along by the river and one jumped out on the other. So she heard some type of surprise. Gotcha. Or, I didn't think anything of it until later. That's 2 separate witnesses. Or Helen, maybe it's the same, yeah. There were no other sounds for me to be concerned about. A second witness, Veronica, housewife, right. I was just about to get my car for a scream from the back. Miss Clausen said it was an inhale scream, like a sharp intake of breath, like a surprise, sudden shock. Someone's having a bit of fun in the back of the graveyard. That's very specific, right? Nicola Bulley's Fitbit and car keys discovered along with her body, senior officer says. Fitbit, watch, and car keys were recovered along with her body. Senior police officer who investigated disappearance asked what was found on her body on the 9th of February. Lancashire Police Detective Superintendent Recassis told the inquest her Fitbit watch and her set of Mercedes car keys. Police give timeline, which I'm not going to read through that. Final setting her at 9 p.m. Miss Bulley last interacted with her phone. Miss Bulley's husband made numerous unanswered calls to Miss Bulley during this time, including a message reading, "Have you got lost?" Really? Why would he assume this because she's not responding? He's already projecting that something's wrong. And you can tell me I'm looking too much into things. This is like deep psychology, like indirect. I can't believe it. Police officer explains for heart rate data recorded sporadically on Fitbit. As part of the investigation, who works for the digital media investigation, retraced Bulley's suspected route with the iPhone to compare the data found in GPS satellites. Her phone was recovered intact from the bench, and there was no sign that it entered the water. Fitbit was recovered from her body in the water, with Lancashire Constabulary later getting access by using her email address. It is believed that the Fitbit had lost power on February 4th, and unsynced. No further steps have been recorded. The Inquest, which is different than battery, had lost power. You don't have to do that manually to unsync it. You do. Yes, it can be knocked and unsynced, but it will automatically resync back up again once it has access. Inquest heard that a possible explanation for heart rate data being recorded sporadically in the days after her disappearance was the movement of water passing between the Fitbit and Miss Bulley's wrist. Since when was it resynced, and why didn't they use that to locate her? What the hell? The Fitbit in Miss Bulley's wrist, subsequently testing on inanimate objects, has provided similar results when there was movement in the water. See, they're trying to show that she was in the water the whole time. This is the biggest horse crap. Oh my god. Like, you can't do better than that? Like, seriously? The inquest, I mean, the thing wasn't even synced since the 4th, and now you're trying to say, but, you know, there were some readings that are indicative to say that are consistent with water moving between the wrist and the bandage. You just said it lost power on the 4th. Where the hell did it get the power from? The moon from Pisces? Jesus criminy. The inquest is now adjourned for the day. Miss Bulley's sister will be expected to hear from tomorrow. Coroner says McVillier possibly entered water at around 9:22. Toward the end of the day, proceeding senior coroner James Adeley, doing the best with your expertise, we could assume entry to the water was just after 9:18 and before 9:30, and very possibly around 9:22, but that's as far as we can go realistically. Said, that is correct, sir. In my opinion, because she wasn't found. That sudden surprise that what sounded like 2 females, because you have that in 2 different accounts. I vividly thought of 2 teenage girls. I thought of 2 girls. There had to have been a second female heard somehow in the distance. She was taken and removed from that point. She couldn't have died here. No, I think she probably died then, but she was stored somewhere. That's where I think the hatchery comes into play. Curtis went there, which a lot of things he does is very suspicious. The 23, Jason Rothwell referenced it. It was kind of sketchy when they went there. It would be a good place. Even test the water outside Marsh Farm Hall in that fountain. Give me a test tube of that, the hatchery, St. Michael's on Wier. Test that fluid in that water from Nicola's lungs and do a compare and contrast analysis between those 3 water samples and the one, and tell me which one is most consistent with from a microbiological level. And don't tell me it's not possible, because it is. You give me that, then we're talking legitimate explanation. But they're not doing that, right? No indication whatsoever. Why are they... This lady, if she does not lose her job, I mean, this is the biggest crap. This is so corrupt. We also asked if there was any indication of third-party involvement in Miss Bulley's death, to which she replied, none whatsoever. Oh my God. Ms. Smith listed the items recovered of Miss Bulley's body, including her Fitbit watch and a set of mirror. I tell you what, Rebecca Smith, I am interested in your entire career for the foreseeable future. Everything you do doesn't make sense. She added Miss Bulley was not using headphones that day. Miss Smith told the court Miss Bulley dialed into her work team's call, did not need to speak. Body would have sunk after she fell in, right? Underwater search experts said Nicola's body may have sunk under the surface of the river after she fell in. Dr. Lane was told the inquest and press and Nikki might have had some buoyancy in her clothing, which would have dispelled. Once that happened, she would have lost that buoyancy and her body would have sunk under the surface, was my assessment. Okay, continue. How did she crest that damn Wier? How did she crest this damn Wier? Because she's found over here. You're saying she went in here. No explanation there. Bull report Nicola Bulley was alive and sober. Why does it say sober? Why would we have any reason to think otherwise? Nothing to do with this case and the day she went missing has any indication of her using stuff aside from Becky's slip and Paul coming out and explaining her hormone and all this menopausal stuff. Like, why is this being brought back up? It wasn't the cause of death, so why are you bringing it up? Was alive and sober. So is she typically not? Like, this is character assassination all over again. They're wanting you to ride off into the sunset and stop questioning because, you know, she had some issues and she was... This is all a slash at her character. It's so sad. Nicola Bulley was alive when she entered the water. When the water entered her lungs. It's not from the river Wier. You can't prove that. It was not under the influence of alcohol. Jeez. Giving evidence... I cannot believe. This is insane. Nicola Bulley was not under the influence... So, I talked way over like an hour longer than I wanted to. So, if anybody made it this far, give me a thumbs up in the comments. I'll show you a heart because I know this is probably hard to get through. Hopefully I made sense. Everything's clear. I had to get my thoughts out. Day 2's coming up. But no, not to keep poking at you. But if I need to apologize and it gets to that point, I 100% will. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm pretty sure I have my own behavior and understand my moral responsibilities as a person, so I can determine when I need to apologize, and I don't need your little pickery smartassery crap. Okay, if you're gonna listen and believe everything you hear, then this probably isn't the channel for you. With all due respect, I suggest you go somewhere else and not just hurt anybody. I don't want drama. It's intellectual, deep thought, holistically, honestly, group discussion. If you want to sit here and be drama, then you can go do something else. I don't want you here, honestly, right? And I don't really ever consider myself valuing street cred. Like, I don't know what that lingo crap is. I mean, it's embarrassing. But this here, I mean, this little winks, you know, come on. It's just crap. I'm just frustrated. But like I said, I've had some breaks with weddings and stuff. I'm back now. I got my next case ready to rock. I'm going to hit in Delphi. So if any of you guys are still listening in Delphi, be prepared for that. Holy smokes, do I got some stuff there. I'm not leaving this case behind. I will never stop. In fact, I'll probably write a book someday, to be honest with you. And I'm dead serious. Honestly, I'd love to interview a lot of big players in this case, none of which I've disagreed with here today because I don't want to share the same space with them, to be honest with you. There'll be a day where all truth will be revealed. And the thing is, come forward and show me more definitive proof. How she crested the Wier. Explain the person who found her a week after. I mean, like, everything. The lady in the picture still has a ring, everybody. Explain that. Nothing's being explained. I mean, this is an elementary presentation of what is supposed to be the explanation to the loss of this beautiful mother of two. And it's a joke. Like, I hope it gets better tomorrow, but you're going to have Paul who's going to go up there and basically repeat everything he has, probably pop a Xanax to make sure he's calmed down. Or snort a line, because I know he's into that too. He wouldn't want to do that on the stand, though, because he'd tweak too much. And then Luis, like, you know, in the beginning with the interviews, there's some weird, you know, I'm not saying anything there, but, you know, you hear they live together taking care of the kids. Like, why is Jason Rothwell not being asked, right? This is about Nicola and where she was found. Whether you want to entertain his message for the day or not, that's not your choice, coroner and experts. Those are the people that are in the best position to provide the best answers to the family and the public. That's what she deserves. Not your horse of stables and who you know are going to protect you, right? And there's no way you can prove the man in black had anything to do with it. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is why was the SIO completely disregarding that? And you say, oh, she was really looking into it. Listen to her words. The cause of drowning was determined the day she went missing. That was their working hypothesis. Right. She was found. They didn't find him. Snowden thinks they solved it. They didn't. Jason found her because he was told to go in that area by Paul, in my opinion. Or Becky, who knows? She's shady too. And then Emma and Paul are very clearly in cahoots behind the scenes. If you just watch from an interrelational dynamic from a step back, if you watch the way they exchange and how close and how she said, he's awful brave. He's awful brave now, isn't he? Isn't he? Oh, you know, like he said, I'm the rock of the family. No, honey. He wasn't talking about you, but you know those times when you slip things out and you shouldn't say it, but you did. Yeah, that's what she did, right? If you can't see that under tension between those two, this isn't the right channel for you, because this is deep. I'm deep. I'm very deep, right? If you can't pick up on that, like and all I want is answers. What's the welfare incident? Are they can talk about that, right? I want to know what the budget expenditures were for March, Snowden. I'm going to track that down. I'm going to file paperwork if I have to. I want to see what the expenditures were. Yeah, so everybody, if this wasn't right up there with all my other episodes, I'm sorry. I didn't script it out. I usually take a lot more time. I want to get this out to now. Now it's actually 9:11 p.m. over there. So I hardly doubt by the time I upload this, any of you are going to hear it before the inquest. But day 2's coming up. Hopefully I got my points across. We'll be in touch soon. Until next time, mind juice out.